Hello and welcome to the Agri Focus podcast from Agriland that takes a closer look at the issues that matter most to farmers across the country. Now, if you're a fan of pure Irish grass-fed butter, then there's one brand that you're probably very familiar with. And you're not alone because you're in the good company of the likes of the Kardashians and Stanley Tucci, who've made no secret of the fact that they're big fans of Kerrygold butter. This week we've been taking a closer look at the owner of Kerrygold, which is the dairy co-op Ornua, who recently published its full year results for 2025. Agriland's editor Stella Meehan sat down with Conor Galvin, the CEO of Ornua, to hear more about that.
Conor, Galvin, thank you for joining us on Agriland on the day that the financial results for Ornua are published. First of all, let's get into the figures. The operating profit over the last year was up almost 5%, 4.7%. Can you outline to us what contributed to that?
So we had a solid year in 2025. It was a complex year, and we're delighted to announce results which are positive. As you said, the operating profit is up, and the operating profit is up because our turnover is up. So our sales in 2025 were 3.5 billion euros for the first time, and that has led us to drive profitability back into the business as well. We're very lucky that we have products from our farmers that are high quality, and there's a uniqueness around the grass-fed Irish dairy story that allows us to bring both Kerrygold and our ingredients overseas and to command a premium for that profit. So that is driving profitability in the business, and it allows us to pay those profits back to members in the Ornua value payment, which is also up in 2025. And it's really the story of Irish dairy. There's a uniqueness to Irish dairy which allows us to bring it to the four corners of the world and to command the premium and drive the profit.
Are you happy with that percentage of profit when you take into account the likes of inflation?
We always want more because we want to be able to give more back. And inflation is a real challenge. Affordability is a real challenge. And inflation and the cost of producing milk, the cost of processing milk, and then also the logistics of us getting our products into the market. All those costs have risen. So we need to be able to drive value back into the value chain. So we'll continue to drive profit to be able to give back to our members and milk suppliers. Because costs are a real challenge, and I think we have to recognize that. And that's why we're here. We're here to drive the value that can hopefully offset those costs and drive the business forward.
Now, 1.8 billion euro worth of Irish dairy products were bought from the member co-ops. A slight decrease on the previous year, but was that probably more down to pricing maybe than the quantity?
Yeah, the second half of the year was really challenging, and milk suppliers will know this, and the processors will as well. We saw a significant drop in dairy markets from August forward. So for butter, which had been at record high prices, and also a lot of the protein products that had high prices in early 2025, they dropped in August, and they dropped very quickly and significantly. So product prices are always something that there's volatility in. We are seeing more volatility in markets in the last couple of years, both highs and lows. And the challenge of managing that is something that we all need to be aware of, but also be focused on. Volatility is something that can prevent you from planning and investing, and we want to be able to invest in dairy for the future. And we also want our milk suppliers to have an assurance around the income that will come into them. So brands like Kerrygold, which is less volatile, is a way where we continue to invest in the Kerrygold brand to drive more certainty around value.
Talking about Kerrygold there, it is considered a premium product around the world. But say there were to be this global recession that is forecast from some entities over the next while. Historically, luxury items tend to take the hit whenever there's austerity, if there's recession, and so on. And within the luxury bracket, I suppose premium products can also take a hit on that. Is that a challenge for you going forward?
I think it's always a challenge, particularly with the affordability of the product, and it's something we're really aware of. we have very loyal consumers, and we have very loyal consumers in a number of markets that pay a premium for our product. We have to keep giving them a value that they will pay the premium for, whether it's the experience, it's the quality, it's the consistency, and it's also the innovation. So bringing new products to those consumers, exciting them around spending the same or more on Kerrygold is really important. And we have to be really respectful of our consumer, who is challenged from an affordability point of view, and ensure we're giving them that Kerrygold experience. We've launched 16 new products and extensions to Kerrygold in the last 12 months. And we'll probably launch even more this year because, whether it's in the size of packs that we offer or it's in the variations on the cheeses and butters that we put into the market, that will allow us to keep giving value to consumers that allows them to justify paying a premium price.
So it's offering them that opportunity. So you're forecasting that if people don't want to go and buy the block of butter, don't want to buy the pound of Kerrygold, that they might opt for these other somewhat diversified products like
Stick,
sticks and so on.
Sticks, for example, is a very good example of where that can drive trial in the brand, and where you don't have to spend as much on the product to trial it. So we find sticks is a really good way for consumers to try the product. It's also a very good way for us to sell some of our more niche products, like our flavored products. And we've launched a number of butter flavors in the last 12 months, which are doing well and are giving an extra edge to Kerrygold and making the brand a little bit more exciting and more relevant to the new consumer that we see coming through.
Go back to the financials. Then again, there was an increase in debt levels. Um, I assume probably linked to maybe to working capital at the time. But are you concerned about bringing that level of debt into 2026, just with the level of uncertainty in global markets in the world at the moment?
Yeah, I think debt is something that we always have to be mindful of and manage. We're a well-funded business, and working capital, as you mentioned there, by its very nature, does ebb and flow. We've seen working capital come back down in the last 2 or 3 months as we've moved through some of the stock that we had from 2025. I'm not concerned, but I'm really mindful of making sure that we first of all have a well-funded business, but we also have a business model that is sustainable. And I think in Ornua, we do have a business model that's sustainable because it allows us to drive the profitability to fund the business, to give those returns then back to members and milk suppliers.
Irish milk is Irish milk price is determined by the markets. Milk suppliers may give out about the processors, but the processors will push it back out to the markets in terms of price. What can milk suppliers expect, we'll say, between here now and the end of 2026 in terms of milk price?
Yeah, I think this year there's still a lot of volatility even in futures in the last few weeks, and I think earlier in the year we would have been hopeful to see a turn in the second half. It does now look like that turn will be slower, and I don't price milk, so that's a matter for the processors and the returns they can get. But from the market information that we have, we'd see reasonable stability in the market and a lift in the second half. But it does still feel like milk prices are going to be under pressure for the rest of 2026.
Where are you looking at in terms of markets? Obviously, the US, the EU would be big markets for Irish dairy produce. Are you looking further abroad?
We are. I mean, first of all, we have to recognize the markets that are performing strongly for us. And as you say, in Europe and the US, the business is performing really well. Our business in the US now has, for the first time at retail sales level, reached $1 billion. And that's quite a milestone for us to grow from. It's a foundation which we would see ourselves continuing to accelerate away from. But we are looking at other markets, and there are a number of seed markets that we'll use to diversify our offering over the coming years. It does take time. I think we have to recognize that the investment that the dairy industry has made in Kerrygold in the last 60 years is paying dividends now. We would hope it won't take 60 years to drive more strategic markets, but it will take probably a short number of years to develop those markets to a scale which will give us similar returns. But we're planting seeds. And we will do that where we believe the opportunity exists for us to grow profitably and sustainably.
In terms of US tariffs, for example, which have been to and fro, over the last year in particular, How much of a challenge is that to operate in a market like the US when the goalposts are changing on a weekly, monthly basis?
It's a significant challenge. We've had 5 different tariff rates since the 1st of January last year. That causes us a lot of issues. First of all, in terms of our management of our customers, some of the tariff rates have changed almost overnight, and it's not possible to communicate and to explain to customers what's happening. And we have to be very respectful of our customers and the certainty they need in their business as well. On top of that, it just drives a level of volatility and again, uncertainty in the Kerrygold business, which is a distraction. And we've had to be very careful that it didn't distract us from growing and developing the business in the US. And the business is still growing in the US. But that being said, it's something that we hope will settle down. There are, from what we understand, constructive conversations going on between the EU and the US in relation to restoring the Tunbury Agreement from last July. And we would hope to see more certainty in the system in the coming months.
You're very well placed as an exporter, seller of Irish produce in markets abroad to give us a view of the reception that you're getting back from clients and consumers in terms of Irish food produce, because at the beginning of this year, we had a controversy that involved board bia. And at the time, the discourse was that this could damage our reputation in terms of agri-food produce internationally. You're drawing our Irish Food Board into controversy. Have you seen any commentary on that among your clients abroad?
No, we haven't. And I think what we have seen is a continued appreciation for the quality of the food. The grass-fed differential that we have in overseas markets is what drives our premium. And that grass-fed differential is assured through the assurance schemes run by Board Bia. I don't doubt that there's challenges on farm, and I know a lot of those challenges exist in terms of making sure that there's compliance to the standards. But it's those standards that drive the premium and drive the difference in the product when we show up in overseas markets. So we haven't seen any negativity overseas, but what we do always have to be mindful of is that the grass-fed standards that we have and the products that we have is it's a fragile proposition. We need to hold and defend it and get the premium from it. And I think a lot of the work that our agencies do overseas to promote Irish food and to promote Kerrygold has to be recognised. And also even on the tariff discussions, we have a government that's very focused on making sure that there is fairness and there is value in how we trade. And we'll continue to support that. I think, grass-fed is something that the European and the US consumer recognizes as different, and the experience of Kerrygold is different. And it's something that, we need to protect and we need to grow.
Finally, let's look at the outlook for Ornua, perhaps maybe in the short to medium term, maybe the next year to 3. What are the priorities? What are the challenges that lie ahead, and what are the opportunities?
I think the priority is to continue growing. We've just launched our new Transforming for Growth strategy in the last couple of months. And that strategy is all around continuing to grow and to grow sustainably. So what we have done is we've reorganized the business into a structure which looks at functional excellence and looks at efficiency. The entire supply chain has to be efficient. We have to be able to sell product that's provided to us by our members into overseas markets and give a return. So we will continue to do that, but we look to grow as well. We look to innovate. We've restructured our innovation processes to be quicker and to be more responsive to a world which has sped up. And we have also become digital first in terms of how we now communicate with our consumer. Our consumer is predominantly online, and a lot of them are on social media. So our social interactions and the desire of the consumer to participate in Kerrygold, I think, is bigger than ever. And it's something that we're tapping into, and we see enormous potential still in Irish dairy, in the Kerrygold brand, and in overseas markets, in driving dairy forward for the future.
Conor, Galvin, thank you very much for joining us in Agriland.
And that was Agriland's editor Stella Meehan chatting to Conor Galvin, CEO of Ornua. And that's it for this episode. Thank you for your company. And if you get a chance, please don't forget to rate, review the AgriFocus podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Goodbye.